The forward operating base baked under a white, punishing sun, the kind that pressed down on everything and made even standing still feel like work. Boots scraped through sand in slow, practiced rhythms. Radios murmured in low, controlled tones. Metal groaned as the wind dragged across antennas and barriers, a constant reminder that nothing here ever truly rested. Near the edge of the movement, a lone woman stood quietly, half shadowed by a supply tent. Soldiers passed around her, not unkindly, but without noticing her either. Their eyes slid past as if she were part of the scenery, not important, not relevant, just another body in the background. Two men paused near a stack of crates, speaking under their breath. "Probably logistics," one of them said. "Intel, maybe," the other replied. "Someone who watches, not someone who matters." She didn't react. She didn't shift her weight. She simply stood there, hands folded, eyes forward, as if she had already learned how to disappear. No one asked her name. No one asked why she was there, and that was exactly how she wanted it. Before we begin, make sure to subscribe to FOB Veteran Stories, and tell us in the comments, where are you watching from today? Her name was Specialist Mara Vance. She was 29 years old, officially assigned as an observational logistics liaison attached to the patrol for data tracking and environmental reporting. On paper, her role sounded harmless, almost clerical. No rifle designation. No combat title. Just another set of eyes meant to record, not react. That alone was enough to define how people saw her. She stood just under average height, her build lean but unremarkable. Not fragile, not imposing. Her uniform was worn the same way everyone else's was, faded at the seams, dust-stained at the cuffs. Nothing about her demanded attention. Her hair was always pulled back, her face calm, her posture relaxed. She did not fidget. She did not scan the horizon theatrically. She did not speak unless spoken to. To most of the soldiers, that read as uncertainty. They mistook quiet for fear, stillness for hesitation. A few of them watched her from the corners of their eyes, waiting for nerves to show, waiting for her to break. She never did. What they didn't notice was the way her eyes never settled. How they flicked subtly across reflective surfaces. How she clocked shadows that didn't match the sun. How she counted steps without looking down. How she timed her breathing to match ambient noise, slipping her exhale into wind gusts and radio bursts. Mara didn't look like she was paying attention. She was. She always was. Staff Sergeant Cole Mercer led the patrol. His call sign was Atlas 3. He was in his mid-30s, built like a man who had carried too much weight for too many years, both physical and otherwise. He was respected, efficient, and cautious without being paranoid. He believed in structure, in checklists, in patterns. When he first saw her name on his roster, he frowned. Observational liaison. He didn't sigh. He didn't roll his eyes. He just assumed. Another soft assignment. He treated her politely, professionally. But he didn't include her in tactical discussions, didn't ask her opinions. Didn't expect much. Not because he thought she was useless. Because he thought she was safe. Corporal Nate Kessler was less subtle. He was tall, loud, and allergic to silence. He joked to fill space. He glanced at Mara once, then muttered, "She looks like she's waiting for permission to breathe." Private First Class Rowan Hale leaned toward him. "You think she's ever been outside wire?" Kessler shrugged. "Doubt it." Sergeant Lyle Moreno didn't say anything. He just watched her, brow furrowed, like he couldn't decide whether she belonged or not. Mara heard all of it. She always did. She didn't take offense. She didn't feel insulted. There was no anger rising in her chest, no wounded pride, only recognition. This was how it always started. People needed her to be invisible before she could protect them. She stood near the edge of their formations, not because she was told to, but because she chose to. It gave her a better angle on their movement patterns. Better peripheral data. Better anticipation of their mistakes. She memorized who lagged when tired, who overcorrected under stress, who looked back when nervous. Cole Mercer favored his right side when scanning. He always did a quick left sweep, then a longer right. Kessler talked when tense. Moreno slowed down when thinking. Hale rushed when uncertain. They were predictable. And predictable people needed protection most. Mara checked the reflections in a vehicle window, noting the shimmer of heat distortions. She marked a distant glint on a ridge that might have been glass. Might have been nothing. She didn't react. She rarely did. Not because she wasn't prepared. Because reacting drew attention. Cole glanced at her once, noticing her stillness. He misread it. "Stay close," he told her, not unkindly. She nodded. She always nodded. Inside, she timed her breaths. 4 in. 2 hold. 6 out. A rhythm she'd learned long ago. A rhythm that made her disappear. Her internal world was not quiet. It was deliberate. It ran on calculations, memory loops, terrain overlays, sound behavior, wind behavior, human behavior. She knew how long it took men to relax after clearing a perimeter. She knew how many seconds of laughter could cost a life. She knew that silence was often mistaken for weakness. And she let them believe it, because when people underestimated her, they didn't watch her. When they didn't watch her, she could move. And when she could move, she could save them. Not one of the soldiers had asked about her past, not where she trained, not what she had done before. She preferred it that way. Questions led to curiosity. Curiosity led to attention. Attention led to targets. And she had spent too many years learning how to survive without being seen. As the patrol finished assembling, Cole gave his standard briefing. He pointed, assigned, corrected. His voice was steady, confident. Mara listened, not to the words, to the pauses, to the breath patterns, to the hesitations. Those always told her more. She adjusted the strap on her pack and shifted her weight half an inch, aligning herself with the shadow of a vehicle. Kessler watched her do it. He smirked. "You good back there?" She nodded again. "I'm good." He looked away. She had given him exactly what he expected. Nothing. But inside, her mind had already drawn 12 possible trajectories across the valley ahead. She had marked 3 potential ambush zones. She had noted how the wind would carry sound, how heat shimmer would distort distance. She had already planned what she would do if everything went wrong. Not if, when. Mara did not resent their doubts. She depended on them. Because invisibility was not an accident, it was survival. The patrol assembled just before midday, when the heat began to climb from uncomfortable to dangerous. The sun sat high, bleaching color from everything it touched, flattening the landscape into sharp whites and pale browns. Even the sky looked tired, hazy, and distant. Cole Mercer stood near the front, reviewing his tablet, giving short, efficient instructions. The team moved around him with practiced ease, checking gear, adjusting straps, murmuring small jokes that carried no real humor. Mara stood near the supply truck, waiting. "Vance," Cole called, glancing up. "Your rear documentation. Stay with Hale. Record environmental changes, movement patterns, any irregularities." It was exactly what everyone expected. She nodded. "Yes, Staff Sergeant." Kessler smirked quietly. "Guess we're bringing a notebook to a gunfight." Hale snorted. Moreno didn't laugh, but he didn't object either. Mara said nothing. She shifted her pack, stepping into the faint shadow cast by a radio mast. Her eyes lifted, scanning the horizon in a slow, casual arc. Heat shimmer blurred the distance, bending the air like glass underwater. Hills wavered. Rocks appeared to move. Nothing in this terrain stayed still. The first few kilometers were quiet. "Too quiet," Kessler said, then laughed it off. Radio chatter filtered in and out, distorted by atmospheric interference. Words stretched. Voices skipped. Static breathed between syllables. Cole frowned, tapping his earpiece. Signal's choppy. Probably solar interference, Hale said. Mara noted the direction of the wind. She did not correct him. They moved through a shallow basin, their shadows clinging to them like stains. Sweat gathered under body armor. Breathing grew heavier. Kessler wiped his face. Remind me why we're not doing this at dawn. Because Command likes to test us, Hale replied. Command doesn't walk, Kessler muttered. Moreno chuckled. Mara counted their steps. 112. Then 113. Then a pause. She noticed it before anyone else. A subtle irregularity in the ground, a faint pattern that didn't belong. She slowed by half a step, her eyes tracing the sand. She saw the disturbance. A footprint that had been brushed out. Too carefully. Too intentionally. She raised her gaze, tracking where it would have led. Toward a ridge. She did not speak. Not yet. Cole raised his fist, signaling a brief halt. He scanned the horizon through his optics. Clear, he said. The patrol relaxed by degrees. That was how it always happened. Never all at once. Just enough to be dangerous. Kessler adjusted his sling. Nothing out here but heat stroke and boredom. Mara looked at the ridge again. Heat shimmer made it look empty. That meant nothing. They moved again. Minutes passed. Then a strange echo rippled through the air. Not a sound. An absence. Like something that should have been there wasn't. Mara tilted her head slightly. Radio chatter stuttered. Cole tapped his earpiece again. Atlas 3 to base, confirm comm relay. Static answered. Then a delayed voice. S, say again. Cole tried again. Cole tried again. The voice returned, warped. Copy partial. Mara slowed her breathing. She had felt this before, not fear. Anticipation. Hale looked back at her. You recording all this? Yes, she said. He nodded, satisfied. That was enough for him. They approached a low pass between two rock formations. The kind of natural funnel that looked harmless until it wasn't. Kessler kicked a stone, sending it clattering. Mara flinched inwardly. Sound traveled strangely here. Sometimes it vanished. Sometimes it carried for kilometers. Moreno pointed ahead. We should be through the choke in a minute. Cole nodded. Keep spacing. The spacing narrowed anyway. Human nature always won small battles. They moved closer without realizing it. Mara noticed. She still did not speak, because she knew what would happen if she did. They would look at her, and then they would look past her, and then they would keep going. Better to wait. She shifted her path subtly, aligning herself with a shallow depression. She adjusted her stride to match the wind. Kessler glanced back. You always walk like that? She met his eyes briefly. Like what? He shrugged. Quiet, she nodded. He laughed lightly. Guess that's good. He turned away. Mara focused forward. She noticed a flicker on the ridge. Not a movement. A pattern. Like the sun reflecting off something that wasn't rock. She slowed. Counted. The flicker appeared again. Then vanished. Her pulse did not change. She felt no urgency, only confirmation. This was what she had been waiting for. Cole raised his fist again, signaling another halt. He scanned with optics. Nothing, he said. He wasn't lying. He simply didn't know what he was looking for. Kessler squinted. Thought I saw something. Moreno shook his head. Heat tricks. Mara remained still. Would you have spoken up if no one believed you? Would you have risked being wrong? Would you have risked being ignored? She had learned long ago that warning people too early only taught them to doubt you. Better to wait until they could feel it themselves. They moved again. A breeze shifted. Sand lifted. The world blurred. Mara let her eyes half-lid, allowing her peripheral vision to dominate. She saw motion. Not fast. Not slow. Intentional. She tracked it without turning her head. Her mind mapped the terrain. She calculated angles. She predicted timing. Her body adjusted instinctively, placing her near cover without making it obvious. Kessler noticed. "You nervous?" "No," she said. He smirked. "Could have fooled me." She said nothing. The radio crackled. This time, it wasn't interference. A voice cut in, strained. "Movement, Sector 6, confirm." Cole turned. Say again. Static. Then a partial transmission. "Not wildlife." Moreno stiffened. "What was that?" Cole tried again. "Repeat last, over." Nothing. Kessler rolled his shoulders. Probably another patrol spooking themselves. Probably. Mara watched the ridge. The flicker returned, then split into two. Her jaw tightened imperceptibly. She calculated. She did not speak. Because if she did, they would ask how she knew. And she could not answer that. Not yet. They reached the mouth of the pass. The air felt wrong. Sound behaved differently here. Even Kessler stopped joking. Hale swallowed. "Feels off." Cole nodded. "Stay sharp." They moved in. Mara took 2 steps left, placing herself near a jagged outcrop. No one questioned it, because no one was watching her. She noticed a small rock dislodge above them, too high to be natural. She counted. 1, 2, 3. The rock stopped, held, then dropped deliberately. It landed behind them. A test. She knew it. Her breathing slowed. Cole frowned. "Did anyone?" Kessler shrugged. "Probably loose." "Probably." Mara looked at the slope. She saw the outline of a shadow that didn't belong. She memorized it. She adjusted her stance. Her fingers twitched once. Would you have spoken up? Would you have told them something was wrong when you had no proof? Would you have risked being laughed at? Mara had done that once, years ago. It had nearly gotten her killed. She would not repeat that mistake. The patrol pressed deeper into the pass. Spacing tightened further. Human nature again. The walls closed in. Radio chatter vanished, not static. Silence. Cole tapped his earpiece. "Base, this is Atlas 3. Comms degraded. Nothing." Moreno muttered. "That's not good." Kessler's humor evaporated. "That's really not good." Mara watched the ridge. She counted. Her internal clock ticked. She saw a shadow shift. Not a person. The absence of light. A presence hiding behind terrain. She stepped back half a pace. Hale noticed. "What's wrong?" "Nothing," she said. Not a lie. Just incomplete. The wind changed direction. She felt it on her cheek. That told her everything. She did not speak. Because she didn't need to. Not yet. Something was wrong. Not in a way they could see. Not in a way they could name. But the desert had gone quiet. Too quiet. And when the desert went quiet, it meant someone else was listening. The first thing they noticed was the wind. Not the way it felt, but the way she responded to it. A sudden gust swept through the pass, lifting sand into thin, whispering sheets. Kessler cursed, shielding his eyes. Hale turned his face away. Moreno blinked hard, trying to clear his vision. Mara stepped sideways without looking, positioning herself where the wind would break against a rock face. Moreno noticed. "Lucky spot," he muttered. She didn't answer. Moments later, a faint clicking sound echoed from somewhere high above them. It was barely there, almost lost in the wind. Kessler frowned. "You hear that?" Before anyone could respond, Mara lifted her hand. Not a signal, not a command. Just a small, quiet gesture. They stopped. The clicking came again. Then silence. Moreno scanned the ridgeline. What was that? She shook her head. Nothing important. It was the wrong answer. Moreno studied her, unsettled. Not by what she said, but by how calm she was. They moved on. A minute later, a stone dislodged from above, tumbling into the path they had been walking seconds earlier. It shattered against the ground, loud and sharp. Kessler jumped. That could have. He stopped. Mara had already shifted again, putting herself behind another outcrop. No one had told her to. She hadn't asked. Hale frowned. You got some kind of sixth sense? She hesitated just long enough to make it seem like she was thinking. Just lucky, she said. Moreno didn't believe her. He began watching her after that. Not obviously, just small glances. Checking where she stood, noting when she moved. She always moved before something happened, not dramatically. Not fast, just early. A radio chirp burst into static. Cole tapped his earpiece. Base, say again. Nothing. Then a warped voice came through. Delay, interference. Mara exhaled quietly. Kessler heard it. Not the sound, but the timing. She had breathed out before the radio distorted. He stared at her. What? She asked. Nothing, he said, but he didn't look away. They reached a shallow basin where the sand was smoother, almost untouched. A perfect place to rest. A perfect place to die. Cole raised his hand. Short pause. The team relaxed, not fully. Just enough. Kessler dropped to one knee, adjusting his boot. Hale wiped sweat from his face. Moreno scanned. Mara stepped away. No one noticed. She moved toward the basin's edge, crouching near a patch of disturbed sand. Her fingers brushed the surface lightly. Moreno saw it. Hey, he said. What are you doing? She looked up. Checking something. What? She hesitated. Wind direction, she said. That was true. It just wasn't the whole truth. Moreno approached, studying the sand. You seeing something I'm not? Probably not, she replied. But she stood. And walked away. Seconds later, a faint pop echoed from the ridge. Not a gunshot. Not a rockfall. Something else. The sound of metal hitting metal. Kessler's head snapped up. Did you hear that? Hale nodded. Yeah? What was that? Cole raised his optics. I don't see anything. Mara had already moved. She was now standing behind a low dune, half hidden. No one knew why. Then a crack split the air. Not close, far. A rifle shot, but it didn't land near them. It hit a rock face several dozen meters away, spraying dust and fragments. They all dropped instinctively. Cole barked. Contact? Nothing followed. No second shot. No follow-up. Just silence. Moreno's heart hammered. That was real. Kessler swallowed. Yeah, Cole scanned. No visual, Hale whispered. Why would someone fire and not follow through? No one answered. Mara remained where she was, still and calm. Moreno noticed something then. A mark on her wrist, just visible beneath her sleeve. Not a tattoo. A faded symbol. Geometric. Military. Not one he recognized. What's that? He asked quietly. She glanced at her wrist, then pulled her sleeve down. Old, she said. That was all. They moved again. Carefully now. Spacing widened. Voices lowered. Kessler didn't joke anymore. Twice more, they heard distant sounds that made no sense. A clink. A muffled impact. A brief echo that vanished before they could locate it. Each time, nothing followed. Each time, they survived. They should not have. Cole began to feel it. Not fear. Pattern. Something was intervening. He couldn't explain it. But the near misses stacked too neatly. Mara vanished again during a brief ridge scan. Not dramatically, just gone. Then she was back, standing in a new place. Moreno finally confronted her quietly. You keep moving like you know something. She met his eyes. I do, she said. What? She shook her head. Not yet. That was worse than denial. Kessler whispered to Hale later. She's either the luckiest person I've ever seen or the unluckiest. Hale nodded slowly. Or neither. They reached the end of the basin without incident, which somehow made it worse. Because nothing should have gone that smoothly. Mara stood at the rear again. Unseen, unacknowledged. But the desert felt different now, like it was holding its breath. Like something had been moving around them the entire time, protecting them, or watching them, and no one could tell which. They reached the ravine just after the sun tipped westward, when the light sharpened and shadows stretched into long, thin spears. It was the kind of place soldiers hated without knowing why. Narrow, curved, flanked by uneven rock walls that made sound behave unpredictably, too many places to hide. Too few ways out. Cole slowed them down. Spacing, he said. Eyes up. No one joked. No one argued. The earlier near misses had done their work. Doubt had replaced confidence. Silence had replaced chatter. Mara walked near the rear, where she was always placed, where she always chose to be. She studied the walls, not with urgency, with certainty. She felt it before she saw it. The air. It wasn't moving naturally anymore. Something was shaping it. Her steps slowed by a fraction. She counted heartbeats. Then she saw it. A glint. Not sunlight. Not reflection. Purposeful. High left. She didn't look at it directly. She didn't need to. Her mind assembled the geometry. She knew where the barrel would be. She knew where the eye behind it would be. She knew how long it would take them to fire. She knew who they would aim at. Not her. Never her. They would aim for Cole. They always aimed for leaders first. She stopped walking. That alone broke protocol. She took one step sideways. No one noticed. She stepped again. Now she was no longer in formation. She was alone, Moreno noticed. He turned. Vance. She raised one finger. Not a command, a request. He froze. Something in her eyes made him. She moved, not fast. Not dramatic, just deliberately. She cut left, moving toward the ravine wall. Cole saw it now. Vance, where are you going? He said, low and controlled. She didn't answer. She couldn't. Answering would draw attention, and attention would kill her. She climbed. Not upward. Across. Using shallow handholds most people wouldn't notice. She moved like she had done this before. Because she had. Her breathing never changed. The glint flashed again, then split. 2, then 3. Her jaw tightened. She reached the shadow of a broken outcrop. From here, she could see them. 3 silhouettes. 2 rifles, 1 spotter. They were good. Very good. Very good. They were patient. They were waiting for the patrol to reach the deepest part of the ravine, where sound would trap them, where escape would be vertical, where panic would multiply. Mara did not rush. She adjusted her stance. She checked the wind. She calculated. She took a small device from her vest. Not a weapon. A tool. She flicked it. It made no sound. She aimed, not at the men, at the rock beside the lead rifle. She released. A small, nearly invisible projectile struck the stone. There was no explosion. No flash. Just a crack. Sharp, like a branch snapping. The sniper flinched. That was enough. His finger tightened. Not fully. Just enough. The shot went wide. It slammed into the ravine wall instead of Cole's chest. The echo thundered. The patrol dropped. Cole shouted, "Contact!" But there was no follow-up fire. No second shot. No chaos. Just confusion. Mara didn't wait. She shifted again. A second device. This one struck the rock under the spotter. A fracture spidered. The stone shifted. Not enough to fall. Just enough to change his angle. His next signal never went out. Because his radio clattered down the slope, out of reach. The third man scrambled. Mara had already moved. She wasn't where she had been. She was never where she had been. She reached another shadow. Another angle. She made herself small, then invisible. Below, Cole barked orders. Spread. Cover. Find the shooter. They searched. There was nothing to find. The ambushers had withdrawn. Not because they were scared. Because their geometry had collapsed. Because something they could not see had undone them. Kessler whispered, "That makes no sense." Moreno whispered back, "None of this does." Hale scanned, shaking. "We should be dead." Cole said nothing. Mara rejoined them 2 minutes later. No one had seen her leave. No one had seen her act. But they saw her now. Her eyes were steady. Her breathing calm, her hands clean. Cole studied her, not accusing. Assessing. He gave the signal to move. They cleared the ravine. No contact. No pursuit. No explanation. Once they were safe, Cole slowed the patrol and gestured subtly. "Vance," he said. "Walk with me." She did. They moved 10 meters ahead of the others. Not far enough to isolate. Just far enough to be private. Cole kept his voice low. "You broke formation." "Yes," she said. "You moved without permission." "Yes." "You knew something." "Yes." He stopped walking. She stopped with him. "What did you know?" "That we were about to die." He stared at her. Not angry. Not disbelieving. Just recalibrating. "How?" She didn't answer. "Mara," he said quietly, using her first name for the first time. "I need to understand what just happened." She met his eyes. "I can't give you that," she said. "That's not acceptable," he replied. "I know." He waited. She waited. The desert wind whispered around them. "I stopped an ambush," she said. "Yes, you did," he replied. "How?" She shook her head. "Did you fire?" he asked. "No," he exhaled. "That's worse," he muttered. She didn't react. "Are you some kind of—" He stopped himself. "No, don't answer that." She nodded. "I need to know if I can trust you," he said. "You already are," she replied. He frowned. "That's not an answer. It's the only one I can give." They stood in silence. Behind them, the patrol whispered. Kessler watched them. Moreno watched them harder. Hale felt his pulse in his throat. Cole spoke again. "If you knew, why didn't you say something?" She didn't hesitate. "Because you wouldn't have believed me." He didn't deny it. "And if I had," she continued, "they would have moved. And then we would be dead." His jaw tightened. "You manipulated the situation." "Yes." "You broke protocol." "Yes." "You risked everything." "Yes." "Why?" She held his gaze. "So you could keep breathing." The simplicity of it unsettled him. No pride. No drama. Just statement. Cole rubbed his face. "You can't keep doing that," he said. "I will," she replied. "Why?" "Because you'll survive." He stared. "And what about you?" he asked. She shrugged. "I usually do." That word. Usually. He lowered his voice. "You could have been killed." "Yes." "And you did it anyway." "Yes." "You didn't even tell anyone." "No." "Why?" he asked. Her eyes softened. Just slightly. "Because if they knew what I was doing, they'd look for me." And if they looked for you, they'd find me. And if they found you, she didn't answer. He understood anyway. He nodded slowly. What are you, Mara? She took a breath. Measured, controlled. Then said one word. Useful. He almost laughed. Almost. The tension lingered. It didn't dissolve. It shifted. From doubt to suspicion. From dismissal to respect. Cole studied her one last time. I don't like unknowns, he said. I am one, she replied. He exhaled. Then said quietly, next time you move like that, give me something. She met his eyes. Trust me, she said. Not a plea, a promise. They rejoined the patrol. No one spoke. But everything had changed, not visibly, not loudly, just enough. Enough to be dangerous, enough to be different, and enough to make them all feel like they were no longer alone out there, even if they still didn't know why. The helicopter arrived just before dusk, its rotors kicking sand into the air like a living storm. The patrol stood in a loose formation, tired, dehydrated, still carrying the weight of what they could not explain. Cole watched the aircraft settle, his jaw tight. He hadn't reported what happened in the ravine. Not fully. He didn't know how. A tall officer stepped out, followed by 2 aides. His uniform was immaculate despite the dust. His posture carried the unmistakable gravity of long command. Brigadier General Thomas Rourke. No one had expected someone that high. Conversations died instantly. Rourke surveyed the group, eyes sharp, reading them like a map. He nodded at Cole, then slowly walked the line, studying faces. When his gaze reached Mara, he stopped, not flowed. Stopped. Completely. Something shifted in his stance, a subtle recalibration. Like he had just recognized a pattern that shouldn't exist. He looked at her again. Longer this time. Mara met his eyes. No salute, no reaction. Just stillness. Rourke stepped closer. Specialist, he said, her rank. But his tone was wrong, not dismissive. Not casual, careful. Yes, sir, she replied. He studied her face, then glanced briefly at her wrist where the faded symbol hid beneath fabric. His breath changed. Do you know what unit that mark belongs to? He asked. The patrol stiffened. Mara didn't answer. He nodded once, as if he already knew. He leaned in, lowering his voice so only she could hear. You weren't supposed to be here, she replied just as quietly. Neither were they. Rourke straightened. And then, slowly, deliberately, he turned to face the patrol. His voice was different now. Lower. Measured. You survived something today that should have killed you, he said. No one spoke. You don't know why, he continued. And you don't need to. Cole swallowed. Rourke looked back at Mara. Then, in front of everyone, he nodded to her. Not sharply. Not theatrically. With respect, not a salute. Something deeper. Kessler's mouth parted. Moreno's breath caught. Hale didn't blink. Rourke spoke again. Some people don't wear their service where you can see it. Silence. You walked beside one of them. The weight of that settled over them like a blanket. No one moved. Mara didn't change, didn't react, didn't look proud. She simply stood. Invisible, but not anymore. And in that stillness, every single soldier realized something at once. They had not been lucky. They had been protected. Brigadier General Rourke did not raise his voice. He did not call the patrol to attention. He did not make a speech. He simply stepped forward. The sand crunched under his boots, the sound unusually loud in the silence. Every soldier watched him now. No one breathed deeply. No one shifted their weight. He stopped in front of Mara. For a moment, it looked like he might say something. A name. A history. A story. a story. He did none of that. Instead, he straightened. And then he saluted. Not sharply. Not ceremonially. Slow. Intentional. Human. It was not the kind of salute given out of regulation. It was the kind given out of understanding. The patrol froze. Kessler felt his chest tighten. Moreno swallowed hard. Hale's hands curled into fists without him realizing. Cole felt the air change. Rourke held the salute for 3 full seconds. Then he lowered his hand. She kept you alive, he said. Just that. Nothing else. No explanation. No elaboration. Mara did not return the salute. She didn't need to. She stood the way she always had, hands relaxed, shoulders neutral, eyes forward. She didn't look proud. She didn't look relieved. She looked exactly the same. That somehow made it heavier. Kessler shifted his weight and stopped himself mid-motion like he had just realized noise mattered now. Moreno's gaze never left her. Hale blinked rapidly. Cole felt something move inside him that he didn't have a word for. Not fear. Not admiration. Reverence. Rourke turned to the patrol. You will not discuss what you saw today. No one objected. You will not try to understand it. No one wanted to. You will do what you've already done. He paused. You will go home alive. Then he stepped back. The moment lingered. No one spoke. The desert wind moved around them, soft and whispering, as if it too were afraid to interrupt. Mara finally shifted. Not away. Just enough to make it clear the moment was over. She bent down, picked up her pack, and slung it over her shoulder. That was it. No acknowledgement. No response. No gratitude. Nothing. The patrol watched her walk back to her place at the edge of the formation, not behind them. Not ahead of them. Beside. But no one saw her the same way again. Kessler didn't make another joke. Not then. Not later. Moreno stood a little straighter. Hale found himself matching her pace unconsciously. Cole looked at her once. Just once. And then he nodded. She nodded back. That was all. They moved out as the light faded. Their steps were quieter, their spacing more deliberate. Their scanning sharper, not because of fear, because of trust. They no longer felt alone in the vastness. Not because they understood, but because they didn't have to. Hours later, when the sky had turned deep blue and the first stars burned through, they paused on a ridge to drink water. Kessler glanced at her, hesitating. Hey, he said quietly. She looked at him. Thanks, he said. Not dramatic. Not emotional. Just real. She inclined her head once. He didn't say anything else. He didn't need to. Later, when Cole took first watch, he found her standing at the perimeter. Not scanning. Listening. He approached slowly. Why do you do it? He asked. She didn't answer right away. Then she said, because someone has to. He considered that. And because you're good at it? She shrugged. Because I don't mind being forgotten. That sentence hit him harder than anything else. He looked out at the dark desert. I won't forget, he said. She turned to him. Her expression didn't change, but her eyes softened. Just barely. Good, she said. Then you'll remember what matters. He nodded. She turned back to the horizon. Invisible again, but no longer unknown. And in that quiet moment, with no audience and no ceremony, the truth of her service finally made sense. She did not need recognition. She needed them alive. And that was enough. The patrol finished its mission 3 days later. They cleared the final sector, logged their data, marked the terrain, moved through the desert with the same discipline they always had, but something in them had changed. Their steps were quieter, their eyes sharper. Their silences heavier. They survived. Every single one of them. And not once did they speak about why. Not on the radio. Not in whispers. Not in tired jokes under the stars. What had happened in the ravine, what the general had done, what they had realized, it stayed locked behind their ribs, carried in the chest instead of the mouth. Mara remained with them until the extraction point. Then she was gone. No announcement. No farewell. No explanation. One moment she was there, checking the horizon. The next, she wasn't. Cole noticed first. He asked no one. He already knew. Weeks later, when he sat alone in a briefing room, filing his after-action report, he found himself staring at a blank line longer than he should have. Cause of survival. He typed nothing. Because there was nothing he was allowed to write. Because some things were not meant to be recorded, he thought about how easily they had dismissed her. How he had categorized her. Filed her into a mental box labeled non-essential. He had been wrong. Not because she was extraordinary, but because she had chosen to be unseen. He realized then that invisibility wasn't absence. It was intention. It was choosing not to be recognized, not to be thanked, not to be remembered. Because being remembered made you visible, and being visible made you a target. Mara had chosen to disappear so others wouldn't. That was the difference. That was the cost. Cole closed the file. Later, when he trained new soldiers, he taught them spacing and scanning and communication. He taught them how to move, how to breathe, how to survive. But sometimes, when no one was watching, he taught them something else, that there were people out there who would never be on a plaque, never be named, never be thanked, and that those were often the ones who mattered most. Because real protection didn't announce itself. It didn't demand recognition. It simply worked. And then it vanished. The desert never told their stories. The wind erased their footprints, and the world kept moving, unaware of how close it had come to losing them. But Cole remembered, and that was enough. Because the truth was simple. Invisibility is not weakness. It is sacrifice. Some heroes don't come home to parades. Some sacrifices never make headlines. Some lives are saved by people whose names will never be spoken. They stand in the background. They move in silence. They carry the weight so others don't have to. And when the moment passes, they disappear. Not because they are weak, but because their strength was never meant to be seen. This story is for them. For the ones who protected without being recognized. For the ones who stayed invisible so others could live. For the ones who chose duty over praise. If this story moved you, take a moment to honor those unseen protectors by sharing it with someone who needs to hear it. And if you enjoyed this story, please subscribe for more FOB veteran stories. These stories keep the courage alive for generations to come.